guys, I'm Em. Today I will be teaching you all the fundamentals of crocheting, from hook sizes to how to read yarn labels, all of the tools that you'll need to start crocheting. And of course, I have my little helper, Mako. He's sleeping per usual. Mako! He does not care about anything. Okay, so these are some of the different hooks that you can get. This is the largest one that I own. It's technically a P hook. It is used for very large weight yarn like 7s, or if you use 2 to 3 strands of 4-weight acrylic, you can also use that hook for that yarn. And then they go all the way down to these super tiny ones. These are used for lace and more intricate work, doilies, that kind of thing. Now, when it comes to hooks, there are all different types of hooks. You could get the ones that I personally like the best with the rubber handles, but I know people who prefer to work without the rubber handles. I find the rubber handles easier to hold on to, and you don't lose them as easy. They're easier to find for me. Yep, and I also wanted to point out that there are letters and numbers on most hooks. I prefer to go by the millimeter numbers rather than the letters, because of this reason right here. These are both technically L hooks, but one says 7 millimeter, and this one, I don't know if you can all see this, let me make sure it's the right way. Yep, it says 8 millimeter. Now, this 7 millimeter and the 8 millimeter are slightly different. The 8 millimeter is a little bit bigger. So this will result in a bigger project than this one. So I always go by the numbers rather than the letters. Next, we will be talking about downing needles. Let me find it, and here we go. So this is a downing needle. It is a very large-eyed needle. It accommodates all types of yarn, even up to 7 weight, and it has a very dull point to it. This would be used to sew any of your projects together. This right here is a stitch marker. This goes in your first stitch of your row or your project or whatever you're working on to let you know where your beginning and end is. This is great for working in the rounds, when you're making, Amaga Ruby, which is stuffed animals, or any kind of clothing. So these are really, really helpful. Next, we will be talking about yarn weight and how to read yarn labels. So let me get these little guys out of the way here. Here is our first label. This is a 1-weight super fine fingering yarn. It is 100% cotton, and there are 186 yards on here. Most of your patterns will tell you the yardage that you need, so you can buy accordingly. Down here tells you if you're knitting, what size knitting needles you need, and if you're crocheting, what size crochet hook you would use. So 3.5 millimeter, which would be this hook over here. If I can find it, hang on. Yeah, this one, pretty tiny. This is the recommended hook size for this particular yarn. And then it's 100% cotton. All yarns tell you what they are on it, what they're made of. And then down here is something really important. This is the lot number. When you're making a big project and you figure out how many skeins of yarn you need, always buy 1 extra skein just in case, because even though the lot numbers may be the same, the dye lot may be different and your yarn won't be the same exact shade. So that's the first label. I don't happen to have a 2-weight label, so we will be moving on to 3. This is a light still fingering yarn. It is a light number 3, which is a little bit bigger than the 1. And then over here, it says dye lot. So when you're buying the yarn for your project, make sure that they all have the same dye lot number so you don't have a variation in the color, because not all yarn is dyed the exact same shade. It'll be the same color, but slightly different in shade. So make sure that you get the right dye lot for all of your skeins. And then here it tells you what it's made of. This one is 52% acrylic, 40% wool, 8% nylon. And here it tells you the different hook sizes that you need. This one calls for a 4mm hook, which is considered an H. I'm trying to find it. Hang on 1 second, bear with me, bear with me. This one right here. See how it says 4mm, and that matches up with that right there. So you would need this size. And it is 3.5 ounces or 290 yards. Some patterns do go by the grams and they don't have the yards on them. So just go by the grams if that is the case for your pattern. And yeah, that is the second label. And we will move on to the most commonly used yarn, a 4-weight. 4-weight. This one is 100% acrylic. And it calls for a J hook, which is a 6mm. And that would be this. Now I know mine says 5.75, but that's okay. It's still a J, as you can see here. That 0.25mm isn't gonna make a difference in your project. And then the lot number is up here. And then the color here. So remember, when you're buying in bulk, say you're making a blanket or a sweater, make sure that the dye lot numbers all match up on your skeins, and buy an extra skein just in case, because the likelihood that you're going to find the same dye lot is very, very small. And then over here is where all the yardage are. And again, it comes into grams and ounces. Sometimes patterns don't have yardage, they have ounces or grams, so just go by that. And then next we will be talking about 5-weight, which is a bulky yarn. The lot number is up here. This is the color and the name. And we need a 6mm hook, which is still a J. See, it tells you J right in there. I'm gonna go down here. Here's the yardage for this one. And it's 100% acrylic. This is a really good yarn for anybody that is looking to make blankets or a nice sweater. Very, very soft, very good quality. And finally, we are getting into the blanket yarns and the chenilles, the bulkies. I don't happen to have a 7-weight wrapper, so we are just gonna do 6, but it's the same thing. So it tells you here, it's a super bulky 6-weight. These make really great blankets, really great stuffed animals, throw pillows, things of that nature. It's very soft. It comes in chenille, or this one is Burnette blanket, which I also like. So it's a 6 weight. This one calls for an 8mm or an L. So that would be this one here, L, 8mm. The die lot up here, this number. For sage, it tells you the ounces and the grams and how many yards there are. So yeah, that is how to read yarn labels, all of the initial things that you will need to start your projects, the downing needles to sew any loose ends together, whether or not you're doing granny squares or stuffed animals, clothing, and your stitch markers to put in your first stitch of your project, and you move it up each row so you know where the beginning of your row is and all of your different hook sizes. So yeah, thank you for chatting with me today. Hope you all have a good rest of your day, and talk to you next time.